Okay, here we go. All right. Well, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Kingdom Business Breakthrough Podcast. I have a very special guest today, Dr. Darlene Mayo, and I'm just so excited you're on the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Derek. I'm so delighted to be here.
Awesome. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into your story. I know you. I'll tell you everyone how I know you a little bit, and then I just want you to kind of give the listeners a little idea of what you do. So I met Darlene, is how I call you. Is that okay to call you on here?
Absolutely, yes.
So we met at the 100X conference in Dallas, Texas, back, I think it was in March, right?
Yes.
About 6 months ago. And we got along really well. She's a kingdom entrepreneur. She is extremely intelligent. She has a lot to offer the world. I heard her contributing to other entrepreneurs' lives and endeavors, both personally, spiritually, and just great advice. And the thing that really struck me when I met her was not only is she got an attractive personality, people were drawn to being around her, but also that she just had God's love all over her. And I just felt like people just could feel that. And so kind of having somebody that's very intelligent, that's also successful, but also has the warmth and the love of God all over them, I think that's kind of a unique combination sometimes. So I was also attracted to come over and talk to you as well. And so I think we got along really well just based upon those principles. So that's kind of my intro of how I got to know you. But tell me a little bit about your adventure. I know some of the story, but let's let the listeners hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And all right, so my background. So I spent most of my life as a neurosurgeon, believe it or not. And that was something I wanted to do ever since I could remember, right? I've really felt it was my calling. I've been a Christian my whole life, followed the guidance of God. And then that's all I did though. That's all I had in my life. And I helped a number of people, and it was wonderful. And then actually, what was it now? 3 years ago, God told me to go adopt 2 children as a single lady working 80 hours a week as a neurosurgeon, right? And I said, I don't have time for that. That can't be God. And he's like, no, go. This is what you're going to do. And it was very interesting to me. I learned a lot of lessons that we don't have too much time to talk about here, but the main one was that I needed other people in my life because I had made myself into somebody that I didn't want to be dependent on anyone else. And that's not kingdom. We all know, right? We're here for each other. But at any rate, what happened is as a neurosurgeon, I wasn't getting the time I needed with my children. And I knew that I had to do something different. And I've always told God, if there's anything in my life he didn't want there, to take it out. And he told me many years ago, he asked me a question in prayer one time, if I asked you to give up neurosurgery, would you? And that was a hard one to say yes to. I had given up many things he asked me to, but that one was hard. But I said, okay. And then a couple of years ago, he did. And it was not a light decision, but it was absolutely the right decision for me and for my family. And he has amazingly blessed me in incredible ways since then. But I have had my life today looks so different than it did 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I was single, working 80 hours a week, cutting open brains at 3 o'clock in the morning. And today I'm, I have 2 beautiful children. I have 4 pets. I have a husband.
And it's a very different life.
Yeah. And I run multiple businesses. So it's very different, but it's definitely incredible. So now what I do, which I love too, because I thought when I gave up neurosurgery, I wasn't going to be able to use everything that I had learned over the years. And I know, first of all, God doesn't waste anything, right? And I don't like to waste anything, especially knowledge. So God showed me a way to use my knowledge of neuroscience, because I'm also a neuroscientist, to help people in incredibly new ways. So not only do I do some things that would make sense to you, right, like health coaching, but I actually use neuroscience to help people with their relationships. I use neuroscience to help people with their business, right, and greater business success. And I love that I can do this from a kingdom perspective too. You know, a lot of people, they don't think that science and faith mix. Mm-hmm. And then I, especially as a doctor all these years, right, I heard this over and over again. You know, a lot of my colleagues, even, they don't believe in God. And I would say, no. And I would go through the Bible and I would say, look, there's scientific principles in the Bible. I mean, everything is backed up,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And God created everything, right? So he created science. And that's what I would say to my Christian friends that said, science doesn't, it's not in line with the word. I said, well, there's multiple places in the Bible that says God created everything. Nothing was created without him, right? So actually, yeah, that actually led me to a book I'm currently writing on the neuroscience basis of faith. So looking forward to getting that out at some point, hopefully this fall or winter.
That's
But
awesome. I can't
yeah,
wait to read
so
that. Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
Well, so let me ask you this. So the big question a lot of entrepreneurs might be asking that are listening to this. So they understand the kingdom, they understand Christianity, they understand, science in general. Maybe how do all these things kind of blend together for you? Like how do the worlds of science, neurosurgery, kingdom entrepreneurship, like Christianity? So to you specifically and to who you serve, how do those worlds come together?
Yeah, so the best way I can describe it really, and this is also a biblical analogy, is like a tapestry that is woven together. These things, they're not separate at all. They are so intimately connected. So I can give you an example. So one of the courses that I teach sometimes to help people get over a specific type of anxiety, okay? Because a lot of people live with anxiety. In fact, 1 out of 3 people in America right now live with anxiety. So I teach a course on visualization, which if you don't know what that is, that's essentially using pictures in your mind or creating stories in your mind of a more pleasant reality, if you will, is a way that we work with that. There's a whole science to how to visualize, right? It's not just close your eyes and imagine. That would be the same if I told you to do that to visualize. That'd be the same thing as if you didn't know how to play a musical instrument and I set you in front of the piano and said, okay, play Rachmaninoff's Second Concerto. You just can't do that, right? There's skills that you have to learn.
Exactly.
So what I did for this recent course is I took, I believe, 8 different principles to teach visualization, and I mapped them to biblical principles and taught people how to use visualization to overcome their anxiety. And the results were absolutely incredible. So that's just a little example for you of one way that they work together very well.
So that's awesome. So people, because I mean, we've seen like there's so many gurus out there that say you got to try this 10-step plan, this 5-step plan. But what you're saying is a lot of that, a lot of people don't really internalize that and actually make real change in their lives. They might memorize a few steps of a plan and they forget about it, but no one's actually making real mind changes, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. So let me take one of the days that we talked about. And so that was on gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's a very important before you even start to visualize to find something or someone to be grateful for. And that's obviously a biblical principle, right?
Right.
But here's what happens in your brain is when you are grateful, your brain starts releasing happiness neurochemicals, motivating neurochemicals. It puts your brain in a state where it makes visualization so much easier to do. And when people understand the science of what's going on behind this, 8-step program, 10-step program, whatever you're talking about, then you get this little aha moment and it gives it some validity to it. Like, okay, well, I know if I take this moment to be grateful, my brain is actually changing. And it's really cool that your brain can change in that moment and over the long term. So when you understand that, then it's easier to get your brain chemicals are there to motivate you, but also the understanding itself helps to motivate you to follow through and you start to see the change even faster, which is great.
So if people start getting some momentum in big things they're trying to change, it does create like a more of a long lasting change, I guess, like life wise for them, right?
It does. It actually starts forming new pathways in your brain, which is very, very cool. So a lot of times when someone wants to make a transition in their life or start a new habit, right, those can be a little bit challenging to do.
Definitely.
But that's something that I actually work with people on because there's neuroscience principles that you can use. So I give people a little 10-minute routine to do every day before they do their habit. And it helps them to form that habit faster and it sticks more in your brain because when you do things over and over again, then it's forming essentially a highway in your brain, not even a pathway, but a highway in your brain, a concrete highway. It happens more easily, faster, just like you could drive faster down a paved highway than you could down a dirt road, for example. So That
So
makes
if
sense.
someone's out there right now, and let's say they've got a negative habit they're trying to replace with a positive one, let's use a real
Hmm.
practical example. So let's
Sure.
say somebody they answer an email and they look at their phone, and now the first thing they do is they click on the Facebook app, and then they start scrolling through, just mindlessly scrolling through Facebook. Then they stopped and they go down a rabbit hole. Next thing you know, 20 minutes later, they were supposed to be working and they went down a rabbit hole for 20 minutes on Facebook. So that's probably a lot of people's bad habits, because Facebook has built their algorithms to bring us in. The whole I guess they have like the little casino thing, where the little slot machine kind of mentality, where it kind of like bounces. They've got it all
Mhm.
figured out, right? So
Yep.
they've trapped us into their system, but we've been willing participants to do it. So now what? Like, how does someone replace that habit with maybe a refocus on getting back to what they were supposed to be doing in the first place?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And there's several steps that you actually need to take. So not only do you need a way to break the bad habit, you need to find something powerful to replace it with, and your motivation has to be high. And if you're that really is the first thing that I always talk to people about when they come to me, whatever the habit is, if it's, following the rabbit hole of Facebook or email, or if it's, look, I'm addicted to alcohol and need to get off of it. I ask them why. What is your motivation? And really not going with that first answer, because a lot of times that first answer is not the true answer. So for your example, someone may say, oh, well, I want to be more productive at work. Okay. And then my next question is, well, why do you want to be more productive at work? What is that going to do for you?
That's
And
awesome. Yeah.
take that. I usually take it a minimum of 3 layers deep question. So you can do this with yourself, right? Keep asking.
I
But
love the three
sometimes
deep model. That's great.
yeah, I mean, sometimes it takes more questions than that.
Hmm.
But you know what? When you get the answer that actually gives you chills running through your body, that is your why.
I love that. That's great. And I never thought about that. I mean, that's a new neural pathway for me here, is to not think. I've thought about habits in a negative or positive, but I haven't thought about the why part of the habit. Like,
Yeah.
what's at the root of why am I doing that? So if I come home at night right after work, the first thing I do is I get my phone back out and check to see if I missed any calls, emails, or whatever on the way home from work. That 20 minutes was really critical. Somebody was trying to get a hold of me and I didn't check it. So
Right.
I checked that instead of maybe taking inventory of what's going on at the house, or maybe, going and kissing each of my kids, or doing something that would be more positive, asking someone about their day. I kind of relapse into that moment. So maybe asking myself, why do I actually do it? It's probably a fear of me missing something that I should be doing. And then, so I could say I could blame it on the habit itself, but it came from originally, I probably did miss something, or I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And a lot of times things we think are fear motivated, but there's usually something behind it. So
Okay.
if you're struggling to figure out what your why is, either why you have a bad habit or a habit you want to change, I don't want to say bad habit, but a habit you want to change, or why you want to create a new habit, I ask people to look at what their values are. And some of us know exactly what our values are and we
Mhm.
can rattle them off, and other people don't. So fortunately there's a ton of actual free assessments you can do to figure those out. But I say, okay, well, how is this particular habit helping you? How is that consistent with your values? How is it consistent with your goals, right? Or how is it inconsistent with them? And as soon as they see that, so for you, Derek, what I know about you in this short time, you're a family man, right?
Right.
And you
Yes.
love your family, you love God first and you love your family next,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yes.
So I would say family, super high value for you. So when you come home, and if the first thing you do is check your email,
Yep.
how is that serving that family value?
I'm writing this down. Okay. So, yeah, it's not serving my family well, most likely, right?
Okay. Okay. And so then you want to look at, you mentioned, oh, well, maybe I'll hug my wife, kiss my kids, or spend some time with them. How would that habit serve that main value for you?
That would make them feel more loved.
Right. And then
Yes.
in turn, how's that going to make you feel?
Um, More probably that I don't know, it doesn't sound right, but give them the love that they deserve, I guess.
Okay. So you're going to feel more either fulfilled fulfilled, or you're, like you're following your passion, something along those lines?
That's right. Yeah. And I know that's a psychological word that comes out. If you say that's right, then someone's really in agreement with you versus you're right. I learned that one from somebody. So that's right. If you can get someone to say that's right, you're on the right track, right?
There you go. Actually, that is true. There's a lot to words too, and I work with this. And just to go off on a tangent for a minute, in business, I teach people even the copy on their ad pages, right? Their funnel pages, and it releases certain brain chemicals. So those words are very powerful. So I would ask you to look at that motivation and then keep that motivation at the center. What is going to remind you that family is your, number one value, or one of your number one values? What is something that's going to be a good trigger for you to remember that? Because that is really a key to helping us form new patterns, right? So then we would talk specifically about what would work best for you, some things that have worked for other people. Maybe you're changing your background on your phone, right? To a different picture. Even if you have your family there already, just something different so that it triggers your brain when you look at your phone and you're getting ready to check your emails. Oh, wait. Yes, I remember my family values and I want to break this habit. So does that make sense?
I think that's great. Yeah. So it's number one, reminding me of what my values are. Two, finding a stimulus or a little key that's, when I see it, it's going to remind me, and then just reinforcing that behavior over and over again, kind of repeating it. Is that right?
It is, absolutely. And then there's certain things that you can do so for you, for this particular instance, just hugging your kids, kissing your wife, whatever that happens to be, is going to release some of your happiness brain chemicals already, so that is a really good thing. But to take it even further, or if somebody has a habit that they're not automatically going to get that dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin release, then I tell them, okay, well, turn on your favorite song when you start doing your new habit.
Cool.
Okay? And then that starts releasing dopamine, one of your motivating neurochemicals. It releases serotonin, which actually helps your memory, and it helps you form those pathways even faster. So that's something you can do as well.
With all the smart technology we have now, I think you can do these apps that have like, it's if this, then that. And it basically, like, I'm just thinking what you're saying in a practical way. You could have it where if I come home between 5 and 6 p.m. and as soon as my car gets in a certain radius of the house, I can have the Sonos player inside cue up a certain song that comes on in the house. The kids all know I'm home and I'm going to come around kissing them all, or I'm just making something up here.
Absolutely. And that is a wonderful, wonderful trigger. And then they look forward to it too, which just adds to the excitement and adds to everybody's happiness brain chemicals going on, right?
You have just made my life a lot better.
Oh, good. I hope so.
I was just thinking too, like my kids actually, so on Saturday mornings, we try to do like a little family breakfast feast. So we eat eggs and bacon every morning for breakfast for brain health and all that. And then on Saturday mornings, we do a little treat, like we'll do like a waffle or pancake or cinnamon rolls or donuts. We kind of like it's like a treat. We don't like eat sugar a lot. So kind of like, and if we do, even on Saturdays, a lot of times we'll do like a keto version of pancakes or a keto version of, so it's got a lot less sugar in it and all that. For those of you guys that don't know what keto is, it's just very low carb diet. So even my kids enjoy that. They feel better when they're doing more high fat, low carb foods. So they don't eat Pop-Tarts in the morning. They don't eat it. So on Saturday morning, it's a big deal. So I started playing the Waffle King song. It's from Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh, how fun.
And it's this funny song about this guy who makes waffles. But as soon as I started making the waffles, I would crank that song up in the kitchen, and the kids would all just think it's so funny. Now, if I forget to play the Waffle King song and I'm making waffles, they'll be like, Dad, why didn't you play the song? But it's like this assimilation in their head there.
Yeah, see, their brain pathways are already associating that. And that's one thing that is super cool with kids. And I love working with children for this reason, because their brain, it's like so malleable, right? You can
Right.
really help to shape it so much easier than adults. We get stuck in our ways, right? And you actually have to break down a bunch of pathways while you're building up. But with kids, you can just start building up those pathways really easily. And it's really fun to see how quickly that they change and adapt.
Oh, I agree. And so you're kind of newer on the entrepreneurial scene, right? So you did
Yes.
years and years of working for companies. So so if there are newer entrepreneurs out there, or some entrepreneurs that might feel stuck right now, what
Hmm.
kind of advice would you give them for, let's start with the newer entrepreneurs, just to kind of put in two silos. New entrepreneurs, they've always worked for someone else before. Now they're going to be on their own. You're the brain surgeon, you're the neuroscientist. What's some great advice you can give a new entrepreneur on how to be successful? Let's say that.
All right. Well, let me think back to the advice that I would have wanted 2 years ago when I first started my entrepreneurial journey. So I would say, number one, again, and I'm going to go back to motivation. And when you understand what happens in your brain with motivation, it's all about these neurochemicals and forming these pathways. But how did it serve you to be in the corporate world? Is one question I would ask. And what didn't serve you? How did that match with your values? And then again, take a look at just the fact of being an entrepreneur, not even what you're doing in the entrepreneurial world. So many times people get tied up in the fact that, oh, I'm working on this particular project, or I'm doing this particular thing. No, just being an entrepreneur. How does that serve you? How does that meet with your values? And how does it not serve you?
Okay.
And really look at that, right? Because here's the thing. I love being an entrepreneur, and I know I'm called to that. And then sometimes I think people take that leap because they're dissatisfied with their current position,
Okay.
but they're not necessarily called to being an entrepreneur. And you have to know that that is your calling, at least in this particular time of your life. Otherwise, you could be running away from something rather than running towards it.
That's really good
And
advice. I think everyone needs to stop for a second and hear that out again. Don't be running from a job to becoming an entrepreneur thinking that you're going to leave all your problems behind, because if you're not called to be an entrepreneur, then you're just going to be running into another set of problems there.
that is correct. And being an entrepreneur, it's hard. You know this. You've been doing it a lot longer than I have, right?
It is hard.
It is. But when you're called to do it, the hard part is actually fun in a lot of ways, and when you can learn to reframe it. And that would be my second tidbit of advice, I suppose. If you know that you're called to be an entrepreneur and you've gone through that, is really don't focus on failure as failure. So I talk a lot about this, and I actually just talked about this in my Facebook page the other week, is having a possibility mindset. Okay. And that is essentially that there are an infinite number of possibilities for any situation. There's an infinite number of ways to solve any problem. So as an entrepreneur, you know that the first thing you try often is not the thing that works, right?
Right.
But if your framework is, oh gosh, that didn't work. Now what I'm going to do? Now what am I going to do? What happens in your brain is your body starts releasing adrenaline and cortisol, and you can't even think straight, right? It shuts down all of your higher processing, and you can't go from there. But if you say, okay, well, that was possibility number one, there's 999 more possibilities, right? So let's just go on to possibility number two. Then it's more of an excitement, and it's a challenge. And then you get all the right brain chemicals that will actually help you to be more creative. Your brain starts recruiting activity from areas that maybe weren't even highly active before when you do these sorts of things. So to really focus on having that possibility mindset, not worrying so much about the how, knowing that there's an infinite number of hows, looking at what your end goal is.
Got it. I think it's a good point for everyone to hear too, is so I'm processing and I'm writing down things as you're talking, and it made me think, I love to hear things from oops, I guess I forgot to turn my ringer off on my phone. That's a nice one. Oopsie. It's okay. Sorry, world out there. Okay. So, but you said something that was really important there. You said basically have like a discovering adventure kind of possibility mindset. And I
Mhm.
think what happens a lot of times is we get really fixated on the vehicle and, okay, God, I'm going to be a shoe uh, entrepreneur. I'm going to build an empire to design shoes, sell shoes. Let's just say some weird thing like that. Well, maybe God says, I just want you to take one step in that direction.
Mhm.
And then you decide, you know what, I really like the people in the shoe industry, but maybe I don't want to be in the manufacturing. I want to be in the marketing side of it, or I want to design shoe laces, or I just want to come up with the ad campaigns for companies that do shoes. There's like you said, a million possibilities. Maybe we get so fixated as entrepreneurs and we think we know exactly the exact path.
Mhm.
My youngest son, who's 13, his idea someday is to have a burger place. He wants to call it the Better Burger. It wants to be
Nice.
like all organic, grass-fed meats, and he's probably going to have like an organ meat burger and do some things that most people never do. And he's
Yeah.
going to make a real healthy version of a burger. Well, in the next 5 years, he may change his mind 100 times on what the
Mhm.
burger is going to look like, or if he's even going to become a burger entrepreneur. But to me, my job right now is just to encourage him. What would that look like?
Mhm.
Like if you were to open up a restaurant, where would you locate it? What would you charge for the burgers? How many employees would you have? Would you try to run it yourself, or would you try to hire a manager? So like you said, it's more about like exploring the adventure of it than it's like, okay, no, you have to commit right now at 13 that you're going to run this exact kind of restaurant. You know what I mean?
Right. And, I love that you said that because actually your brain does, when you give it a vision, right? And you work out the details of what you think that vision is based on what you know right now, your brain is absolutely amazing. And it goes and it pulls information that you may not even remember, but maybe I don't know, you read an article or you read a book or you talked to somebody, 5 years ago, 10 years ago for us grownups, right? 30 years ago. And it says, okay, well, how can I use this now to bring this vision to fruition? And what happens along the line a lot of times is you come up with an even better vision than you had to start with
Oh
because your
yeah.
brain is actually working for you. And I believe, I believe that is how God designed the brain. I also believe that's how Holy Spirit works. And so I think it's amazing.
Have you heard the expression before? And I'm sure you have. Is your conscious mind is the goal setter, and your unconscious mind is the goal getter?
Absolutely. It's very true. And here's another little tidbit. I'm giving you a lot of my tidbits right now,
Sure,
but
go
that's
for
all
it.
good. When you are wanting to find a creative solution, one thing that I always encourage people to do right before you go to sleep when you're laying down in bed is visualize what you want, okay? And then just forget about it and go to bed with the intention that your brain will actually solve that problem for you during the night.
Wow,
And
cool.
9 times out of 10, you will wake up in the morning with the solution. So,
So let's slow that down again for people. So, because I know I need to hear it again myself. So, let's say that my problem is I'm trying to find a way to finance a new expansion of my business, but I don't know if I should get a loan or if I should get friends and family help, or if I want to get issue stocks and bonds in my company, or if I want to sell something that I own. So I'm
okay.
trying to process how to come up with some just mythical amount of money for a business expansion. So I would go to bed thinking about like I would think about what it would look like if I had the money, or would I think about the ways to get the money? Like to kind of
No.
be a little clearer for me here.
Yeah. So what you want to do, you actually don't want to think about the ways to get the money because that's going to stress you out.
Okay.
Okay. And that's actually going to keep you from sleeping. What you want to think about is what is that end goal? Okay. That you want to have a business expansion or a partnership, right? That is a goal. And how you get there, it doesn't matter. You just want to focus on all of the positive feelings that you will have. And here's another thing that I teach people. Who is the person you are going to become when you have achieved this particular goal, right? People don't think about that a lot of time, but when you think about that, that actually works on a deeper part of your brain that will help you solve that problem. And then, so you think about what you want and who you're going to be when you have that, and then just go to sleep. That's all you do. And then you're going to sleep with this nice, happy feeling, right? Because you're imagining, you know, oh, wow, I'm going to be, you know, a more creative person when I have, like, if it's a partnership you want, or you know, business expansion, like, I'm going to be able to influence other people's lives and show them things that I've learned, right? And that's going to help them not go through the same potholes that I had to go through, right?
Yes.
And that's a really rewarding thing when you're able to save somebody a step or two or 10 sometimes along the way. And I know you did that in your book, which I love your book for that reason. It's absolutely incredible. Yeah. And then you go to sleep and you wake up and you may come up with an idea that is maybe a combination of everything you had been thinking about before. Maybe it is seems out of left field, but sometimes, you know what, when we've been going the same direction and feel like we're hitting our head against the wall, sometimes the right thing to do is to turn in a completely different direction that you may not think makes any sense. But when you follow it and, you know, follow that spirit, follow the instinct, then you really can see incredible results.
That's amazing. And, you know, it's one of my other mentors had written like some educational materials, and they always use the expression be, do, have. Mm-hmm. And they said you have to be the person you want to be first. You do the things that person would do, and you'll have the things that person would have.
Yep.
I always thought that was a really ingenious kind of, very simple, but and it goes exactly along with what you're saying. You have to envision this person you're going to be when you've accomplished those goals, when that business is expanded, when your family is benefiting from this new house or whatever project you're working on. And then you do the things that person would do now. Like, what kind of character things would they do? What kind of daily decisions? What kind of habits would they have? What kind of friends would they have? What kind of mentors would they have? And then you have those things once you've done those first two things. So the way I process is like thinking out loud. Like, so I hope that like summarizes what you were saying.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful analogy. And that's exactly what I do when I coach people, right? Is I help them to understand exactly who they want to be. And then I give them some steps based in neuroscience and how to get there, how to do the doing part more easily and form those pathways quicker so that then you can get to the have faster. And what's interesting is a lot of times we think we want to have something, but it's really, once we get there, it's not about what we have. It really is about who we've become. And but sometimes you have to, sorry about that.
Yeah, my phone, your dog, it's all good.
We're in hurricane evacuation right now, so we're at my mother's house.
Yeah, well, I'll empathize with you for that. So how's the hurricane looking right now? Is it looking like it's coming your way or what?
Oh gosh. Well, we left actually yesterday because we thought the easier thing to do would be to come back home if it wasn't coming our way than to leave once they made an evacuation order. So we, thank goodness, staying at my mother's house in Georgia. So, but I think it's going to hit Florida pretty hard. So we're praying that it will dissipate and move away because it looks like a pretty bad storm.
Yeah, the last couple of times that you guys were supposed to get hit pretty hard, they got diverted. So we'll keep praying that for you guys as well.
Yeah, thank you.
So a few more minutes that we have left, I got to cover a couple more things because I want to use your time wisely here. I want to be a good steward of your resource here. So we talked about entrepreneurs that are new that are getting into becoming an entrepreneur. So then there's this other side of entrepreneurship, which I have to admit I've spent a lot of time in. That is, I've been doing this for 15 years. Sometimes you go through the grind part of, okay, I'm doing the same thing. I started this because I wanted to do something new and exciting and different. So what advice would you have for entrepreneurs that are out there and they might start feeling a little stagnation, a little stall, it's getting repetitious. So what would you just give advice to those kind of people that as an entrepreneur, they just need a little bit of maybe encouragement or something new, fresh, bold? Like, you give me some advice on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. And that's actually advice that is good for people even in corporate America, right? You get stuck in that. Yeah. And a lot of like doctors go through burnout, right? And so they need this.
That's so kind of the bad B word, right?
Yeah, it is. But it's, it's really prevalent, especially among surgeons. It's crazy. But so here is one of my favorite exercises to give people to do. And the point of the exercise is to help you find your joy again, which is what you need to get past this point. So I tell them to go back and remember a time, if for an entrepreneur, we'll take that because that's your audience, is to go back right before you took that entrepreneurial journey, or that first day, or that first big moment of success that you had. And I will have you journal that, right? And just write out as many details as you can. And then close your eyes and try to picture that exact scenario to the best that you can remember it. And then that incredible feeling, that sense of joy and accomplishment and freedom, because freedom, that's a big one for entrepreneurs, right? When we feel like we've gotten to that point of freedom.
And you're really getting into the emotions of where people live in that moment. It's not about they had 10 sales or they made their first $10,000 check. It's what feeling came along with the $10,000 check, which that's what was significant.
That's right. That's right. And so, and it's a different stage for different people. Sometimes it's that first day, for me, it was the day that it was my last day of work as a clinical neurosurgeon. I came home and I cried because I felt so free.
Wow. That's awesome.
Because I knew I wasn't going to have to get up at 3:00 in the morning anymore and go drive down to the hospital. And because I felt, at that point, I felt chained. And so the entrepreneurial world has given me that freedom to be able to raise my family and to be present for them and to be fully there for them. And, I struggled for women or men that maybe have taken the entrepreneurial step. I just want to say, for family reasons. Sometimes, and I got this from a lot of my other colleagues, they said, you could help so many more people as a neurosurgeon, Darlene. What are you doing giving that up to raise 2 children and impacting their lives? But you know what? To God, those 2 children, they need me. And the impact that I have in those 2 little lives right now is incredible. And you know what? I know that during my time as a neurosurgeon, I taught and trained up, I don't even know how many neurosurgeons, right, to do what I did and do it even better.
Next generation, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And then what God has shown me is now, as an entrepreneur, now I'm not just going to reach 10,000 lives through my career. I can reach, I think big, so I can reach millions through what I'm doing now and impact them in ways and fill a void that isn't there. And there's no script for it, right? There's nobody out there teaching people how to, maximize their brain potential using faith and science. So it's something out there that really needs to be taught. And by taking a step of obedience, even when other people were questioning that, but knowing that, number one, even if the 2 lives that I ever impacted the rest of my life were my children, that was enough and that was important to God. And then being honored with the fact that God has allowed me to impact so many more lives.
I mean, that's an amazing inspiration for people out there, because, we all get into the entrepreneurial game for different reasons. We all, have start families for different reasons. We all get married for different reasons. And, it's like hearing somebody that's like their true heart was like, hey, I'm going to leave a successful career because I feel like that's what God's called me to do. You left and did 2 things. You went and became an entrepreneur as one path, and you became a parent. And then another one is a wife, right? So those are things that you didn't have capacity for in your previous life, right?
Absolutely not. No.
So, you traded one thing for 3, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's how God works, is in multiplication. And I love that.
And actually, if you count like the community that we're part of and the, mastermind groups, and it's an exponential return when you start adding all that in, right?
Yeah, that is really true. And it's really cool. And I remember one prayer that I've prayed for probably 10 years. So a long time before I ever took the entrepreneurial journey, but I prayed that God would surround me with kingdom people that were driven and passionate about their business, just like me. And, he had to get me into the entrepreneurial world to do it. But oh my goodness, I'm surrounded with the most incredible family now. And that prayer was just answered like a millionfold.
Well, it's fun because I think, we've got some colleagues that talk about, the 7 mountains of kind of culture and how, a lot of us have been we've grown up thinking, well, the only way to get holier and get more righteous or whatever is you go to church more, you pray more, you study the Bible more, and then you like become clergy or deacons or ushers or pastors in your church. And what I've discovered over the last 20 years and, professional services and entrepreneurship over the last 15 years is my ministry is where I'm placed. Like wherever God puts me, that's where I am. So, if you and I even are talking about God here and this becomes a ministry just where we are, and then the people's lives that are going to listen to this later or watch this on YouTube, if I can figure out how to upload it on that properly, people will be impacted forever. Like literally 10 years from now, someone could pull this YouTube video up or, and it's like, and they'll benefit from this moment that we had right here. And I think that's, like you said, it's impactful beyond what we can even think about.
Absolutely. I think that's amazing. And stewarding our gifts well, I believe.
That's right.
Too.
Well, I've got one more question for you, and
Okay.
I'm going to wrap up for you because I want to be respectful of your time, and I want you to be safe there as well. So,
thank you.
So, you talked earlier about kind of your entrepreneurial journey. Can you give people like a way that they could further connect with you? So after this, conversation, like, you know what, she's talked about a lot of things I'm struggling with, dealing with, and I'm also an entrepreneur. So like connect the dots for somebody out there that wants to go to the next level with you. Like, how would they reach you? Like, what kind of programs do you have? What kind of products that you could serve them with? Just go ahead and, pitch a little bit here, because everybody, and at this point they're leaning in. They're like, okay, tell me more. Let's go here.
All right. Well, thank you, Derek. That's very kind of you. So one of the easiest ways to connect with me is on Facebook. Absolutely. So my business page is Darlene A. Mayo, MD. Very simple. And I put out a video usually once a week. I did not with the evacuation this week, but usually I put out a video once a week where I cover topics that range from business to relationships to your spiritual life to expanding the capacity of your brain, right? And your finances too. So we really hit all the topics, and that you can message me there at that page. You can follow my page, and that's a good way to connect with me. You'll also get notifications about when my book comes out about that, and there's links to my programs. So I have a number of programs. I talked about the visualization program, and then I have a course on creating lasting habits, which is usually pretty popular. And then I do a lot of one-on-one and group coaching also. If you're dealing with issues like anxiety or health issues, I do a lot of coaching along those lines as well. So.
Well, that was a quick pitch for a lot of stuff there. So it sounds like to me that someone could connect with you. You could do like a virtual product where they can learn on their own pace.
Yes.
They could just follow you for free on Facebook for a while and make sure they kind of understand everything. And then you've also got these individual and group coaching that's kind of like more of like a month or yearly kind of subscriptions kind of thing.
Correct. Absolutely. Awesome. And then God told me a little bit ago to start doing some seminars. So I guess I'm going to be doing some seminars here soon. Actually, I have one coming up. I didn't even think about this. I do out in California. Right before our conference, I'm doing a Master Your Mindset seminar actually out in Walnut Creek, California at the end of September. So.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I love live events. I mean, to me, books are great, and I'm very grateful that I get to write this book and everything, but it's like one-on-one with somebody or even in a group setting. I feel like that's where my God's like given me like a little bit extra supernatural like giftings. I don't know how to explain it, but it's not that I'm some amazing orator or something, but my heart just comes out more when I'm there with someone in person. And even if it's like, I do these training sessions maybe once every 2 weeks here at our real estate office, and they have me teach on like how to get more listings or how to get a buyer in the car with you, all these, but I turn them, I take the material and I kind of like tweak it a little bit here and there. It's like, I come from my heart and I'm like, guys, the real reason why you want to do this is this, it's like come from value, come from contribution. Like you really want to serve people at the highest level. So I have a gospel message that comes through in a secular class, but I don't put the God label on it a lot of times. I just talk about the principles that we believe in. Absolutely. And then when people are leaning in at the end and they want to know more, I'm like, hey, I'm writing a book and here's the title. And then they can take a piece of me with them when they leave. you know?
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
And
That's
that's what you're
amazing.
going to be doing is when your
Yeah.
book comes out and your other endeavors. I think the same way is like people want more after listening to this podcast. That's why I wanted people to be able to connect with you. And I believe in an abundant mentality for everything. It's like we all have, abundant resources. We just don't understand that. But
Right.
then there's not just, oh, I'm only going to buy one program this year. I'm only going to buy one book
Right.
this year. I was
Mhm.
talking to this lady yesterday. She is so successful. She's a multimillionaire. She's got no debt. She owns like 35 rental properties, and she's like 50 years old, I think. And she
Wow.
was telling me that, she reads like 40 books a year.
That's
And
great.
so, using that mentality, if I was an author and I said, "Oh, please read my book. I want you to read my book," she'll be like, "Sure." And I'll also read 39 others this year. So it's not like it's not a mutually exclusive deal here, right?
Absolutely. But I read a lot too, and I encourage people to read. Your brain expands actually its capacity by reading. So that's a great thing to do. But your book, and I've read it in detail, so I know how impactful it is and how uh, it really comes from an inspired standpoint. And I think that's going to be something that's going to stand out to her among her other 39 books. Absolutely. So.
Well, and this is great too. I appreciate that. She's going to be an early reader of the book as well. I told her, I said, well, you're going to have to wait till it comes out officially because you're not on the pre list here. But we're hopefully next week. I don't know when this podcast is going to go out. Maybe in a few days, but the book will be out soon. But Darlene, thank you so much for being on my show and God's show here. It's like his thing. I'm just a steward of it. So hopefully I'm being a good steward of his resources. But we really appreciate you being here, and everyone that's listening. We're just going to say a collective thank you for your time here. So,
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's been my absolute pleasure. And I pray that you will have the greatest success. I know you will. I know God has amazing things even yet to come for you.
I appreciate that. And I'll be in touch.
Absolutely. All
All
right.
right. We'll
Thank
talk to you
you.
soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Let me